The rain came sideways, slashing against the tin roof like claws. Jack stood on the porch of the creaking farmhouse, his gaze fixed on the dark horizon where thunder stitched jagged lines through the sky. The storm had come out of nowhere, far too sudden and violent to be natural. He gripped the wooden railing, knuckles white, instincts prickling with unease. Behind him, the screen door creaked open. "Daddy." Myra's voice was small, her silhouette barely more than a shadow behind the gauzy curtain of rain. "Can I sleep in your room tonight? It's too loud." Jack turned, softening. 10 years old and brave beyond her years, Myra rarely admitted fear. He nodded. "Of course, sweetheart. Get your pillow. I'll be in soon." She lingered for a moment, her eyes drawn to the sky. "Doesn't feel like a normal storm." Jack didn't respond. Something in the air buzzed, not like thunder, more like a frequency he couldn't hear but could feel vibrating in his molars. Then, through the downpour, a sudden burst of light tore across the woods behind the cornfield. It wasn't lightning. It was bluer.
Cleaner.
And it moved. What was that? Myra breathed, stepping outside despite the rain. Back inside, Jack ordered, already pulling on his coat. He didn't wait for her to protest. The flashlight and the old hunting rifle were in the mudroom. His boots hit the wet ground hard as he crossed into the field, the tall stalks bending and swaying like watchers in the wind. The light had vanished, but smoke curled above the treeline. Branches snapped underfoot as he pushed into the forest, heart pounding. Then he saw it. Or rather, her. Half buried in the mud was a figure, curled like a fallen bird. She was humanoid, unmistakably so, but nothing about her was right. Her skin glimmered faintly even in the darkness, like frost on silver glass. Her clothes, if they were clothes, resembled fractured crystal, woven into a bodysuit torn and scorched along one side. A halo of steam rose from her, and her breaths were ragged, shallow. Jack lowered the rifle slowly. "Hey," he said, voice cautious but firm. "Can you hear me?" She didn't respond, but her eyes fluttered, unnatural eyes, almost luminous, with too many shades of violet to name. For a long moment, Jack stood frozen, logic warring with instinct. Then the woman coughed, weak and wet, and his decision made itself. He slung the rifle over his back and crouched beside her. "This is insane," he muttered. But he was already lifting her. She was light, far too light for her size. Back through the rain, the house loomed like a lighthouse, warm with yellow light. Myra watched from the window, her hands pressed to the glass. "Don't say anything yet," Jack whispered as he carried the stranger inside, heading straight for the basement. It was dry, insulated, and most importantly, hidden. He laid her on the old cot that had survived floods and termites alike, then grabbed towels from the storage shelves. By the time he returned upstairs, Myra was sitting on the couch, eyes wide and brimming with questions.
"Who was that?" she asked.
"I don't know," Jack replied, peeling off his coat. "Someone hurt. Lost, maybe." "She wasn't human," Myra whispered, like it was a secret between them. He didn't correct her. Later, when the storm had dulled to a heavy drizzle and the fire in the hearth had shrunk to embers, Jack sat at the kitchen table, staring at the rifle across from him. Myra had fallen asleep in his bed, curled around her pillow like a kitten. He hadn't told her that the woman's skin had hummed under his hands, or that the wound on her side had sparked faintly when the towel touched it. And he hadn't told her that, for the briefest moment, he thought he'd heard a voice inside his head, a whisper of sound not in any language he recognized. Downstairs, the woman stirred. Jack went to her just after midnight. He moved quietly, steps soft on the basement stairs. She was sitting up, barely, her back against the wall, eyes unfocused. When she saw him, she flinched, and the crystal on her arm pulsed faintly. "I won't hurt you," he said, holding up his hands. "You were out cold. I didn't know where else to take you." She blinked slowly. Then her lips parted, not to speak, but to breathe out a soft series of notes, like wind chimes underwater. Her voice wasn't a voice. It was resonance. Jack felt the words more than he heard them. "Safe."
"Child."
Kindness. He swallowed hard.
Yeah.
She's my daughter. You're safe here. For now. The woman tilted her head, eyes glittering. One of the shards embedded in her clothing fell to the floor and dissolved like ice on skin. Jack watched her, and in the low, flickering light, he realized something. Whatever she wasn't just different. She was broken. And he'd brought her into his home. Upstairs, thunder growled one last time and faded. The storm had passed, but Jack had the uneasy sense that its arrival hadn't been the real danger. It was what followed that would matter. As he turned to go back upstairs, the woman's gaze tracked him. And just before he closed the basement door, she whispered something too faint for words. But Mira, half asleep in his bed, suddenly smiled. She dreamed of stars. The basement smelled of old wood, dust, and something faintly sweet, like ozone. Jack came down each morning now with a tray of food and supplies, and every morning she was awake, more alert, more aware, though still too weak to stand. Her wounds were closing at an unnatural pace, yet her expression remained hollow, watchful, wary of him. She hadn't told him her name, not aloud. But one night, just before sleep took him, he felt her in his thoughts again, a shimmer of presence, gentle as wind over water.
Saren.
It wasn't just a name. It was a title, a weight. And somehow, he knew it didn't belong to a wanderer or a refugee. It belonged to someone used to being obeyed. Mira knew more than he wanted her to. Despite his warnings, she found excuses to slip downstairs, bringing fresh linens, extra soup, one time even a glitter pen with little stars stamped on the cap. Saren never spoke to her, but the two of them shared long, quiet looks. Mira would talk as she sat on the cot's edge, describing constellations, school stories, questions too big for her age. Saren listened as though she understood every word, and sometimes Jack caught a flicker of expression in those alien eyes, fondness, even grief. One afternoon, Jack finally asked, "Why her? Why are you drawn to Mira?" Saren didn't answer with words. Instead, she reached out and touched Jack's temple with two cool fingers. Instantly, he was somewhere else, suspended in a sky that wasn't Earth's. Above him, endless galaxies swirled. Below, a planet with wings of light hovered like a tear caught mid-fall. He saw children floating between glowing trees, breathing songs. A girl, small and strong, stepped forward with Myra's eyes and an impossible future. Then it was gone. Jack staggered back, gasping. Saren withdrew her hand, solemn. "She is not special," she said aloud for the first time, her voice low and shimmering. "But her dreams, they are unbound." Jack stared. "You're saying she has a destiny?" Saren shook her head. "I'm saying she has possibility. In my world, that's rarer than power." That night, Jack sat on the porch long after Mira had gone to sleep. Stars blinked above the cornfields, unbothered by storms. He sipped lukewarm coffee and tried to make sense of his own confusion. He should have been terrified. This woman, this creature, was clearly something ancient and immense. But instead of conquest or commands, she offered only silence,
Rest.
and a gaze that held galaxies. He had too many questions and no good place to put them. The next morning, Mira ran into the kitchen with eyes wide and breathless. "She showed me how she flies," she said, barely whispering. "Not in a dream. I was awake. I felt the wind. I saw the colors. It was like riding lightning." Jack knelt beside her, his voice taut. "What did she do to you?"
Nothing, Mira said.
"She just opened something." Later, when Jack went down, Saren met him with an expression he hadn't seen before, guilt. "I didn't ask you to do this," he said. "You should have stayed away from her." "She sought me," Saren replied. "Children see what adults bury." She saw wonder, and I gave her a glimpse. Nothing more. Jack paced. "She's 10. Her mother died 2 years ago. She's finally starting to live again, and you're feeding her fantasies." Saren straightened, though she barely had the strength to sit upright. "Is dreaming a danger on this world?" Jack stopped pacing. Dreaming's not the problem. The fall from it is. Saren studied him for a long time. Then, she reached beneath the folds of her fractured armor and withdrew a shard, glowing faintly, pulsing in sync with her breath. She extended it toward him. "This is memory," she said. "My people stored knowledge in light. You may see it if you choose. But know that seeing it cannot be undone." He didn't take it. Not yet. But he sat, finally, across from her. "Who are you really?" "I was Empress once. A guardian of starborn relics. I watched over worlds not my own. Then we were betrayed, and I fled. My wings were torn from me, and the last gate fell behind me." Jack absorbed the words like weights being added to a scale. "So what now? You hide forever?" "I heal," she said simply. "And I pass on what I can. One more spark before I fade." They didn't speak after that. Jack took the shard upstairs that night, but didn't open it. It sat beside his bed, humming like a silent promise. Days passed. Saren grew stronger, though her eyes dimmed. She taught Mira strange songs, hummed in tones that made the air shimmer. Sometimes Jack found them both asleep together, a child and an alien curled like sisters beneath a quilt. Then, on the 7th night, the sky flared. Jack jolted awake to a sound like metal screaming across the sky. Through the window, a red pulse burned behind the clouds. 1, then 2. Not thunder, not lightning. A signal. He ran downstairs. Saren was already standing, barely, her legs trembling but her posture regal. "They found me," she said. "The ones who broke my wings." Jack's heart thudded. "Are they coming for you? Or for what you brought?" "For both." He didn't ask if running would help. He already knew the answer. Saren looked toward the ceiling, as if she could see through it to where Mira now slept. "She should not see what's coming." "But she will," Jack said. He handed her the shard. "Then we'd better be ready." The morning broke red. The clouds hung low, like bruises stretched across the sky, and the air was unnaturally still. No birdsong. No wind. Only the slow, heavy breath of the earth holding itself tight. Jack stood in the field with a shard tucked inside his coat and his daughter safe behind boarded windows. Saren stood beside him, draped in a cloak made from stitched blankets and a remnant of her crystal suit. Her wounds were closed, but the light beneath her skin flickered like a dying fire. "They will not talk," she said quietly. "They will come to take, or to kill." "How many?" Jack asked. "One ship," she answered. "But what it carries is worse than numbers. They are hollow inside. Starburnt. Devourers of possibility." Jack checked the rifle again, even though he knew it would do nothing. The act steadied him. A shriek tore the sky as the vessel appeared, sleek, black, and humming with predatory energy. It didn't land so much as anchor itself in the air, hovering above the trilene. Light bled from its underside, scanning in arcs. Then a single shape descended, tall, sharp, faceless, encased in armor that moved like oil on metal. Jack swallowed. Saren stepped forward. The figure landed silently. Its presence made the air tighten, as if the world itself recoiled. Jack felt it in his bones, rage, hunger, an ancient echo that had followed Saren across stars. The being raised its arm. The crystal embedded in Saren's chest flared in response, not in greeting, but in rejection. "I carry no weapon," Saren said, her voice thin but unyielding. "There is nothing here for you." The being did not speak. It moved. In one blink, it was in front of her, arm raised like a scythe. Jack stepped in. His body slammed into the creature's arm, rifle cracking as it broke. He hit the ground hard. Saren screamed, not a sound of fear, but of fury. The crystal on her chest cracked open, revealing a blinding heart of light. The enemy hesitated. That hesitation saved them all. Saren placed her palm to the earth. A ring of light surged outward, scorching grass, boiling mist. The creature staggered. Jack crawled backward, shielding his face as a dome of force expanded between them and the invader. "Mira," Saren gasped, falling to her knees. "Go to her." Jack didn't hesitate. He ran, legs burning, breath ragged. Inside, Mira had already woken. She stood by the window, her eyes wide with knowing. "It's her, isn't it?" she whispered. "She's fighting for us." "She's stalling," Jack said, grabbing Myra's coat. "We have to go. Now." But Saren was already at the door. Her face was pale, luminous with strain. In her hand, she held something new, a crystalline object shaped like wings, folding and unfolding in silence. "This was meant for another," she said, placing it in Myra's trembling hands. "But she died before I reached her. It was forged to bind with the spirit of a dreamer." Jack stepped forward. "She's a child."
"She is ready," Saren said.
"Not to fight, to fly." Mira looked up. "Will it hurt?" "No," Saren said. "But it will change you." Mira nodded. She always nodded when things were too big to understand. The wings shimmered once, then dissolved into her palms like sugar in water. Mira gasped, but not in pain. Her body arched, lifted, her eyes blazing with silver light. Jack reached for her, but Saren held him back. "Let it happen," she said, "or she will never rise." Outside, the enemy slammed against the barrier again, harder this time. The house shuddered. The ground cracked. Mira lowered slowly to the floor, panting. The wings were there, visible now, translucent and curved with strange geometry, humming with barely restrained energy. She turned to her father. "I can stop it." Jack knelt in front of her, heart torn in two. "You don't have to." "I want to." Saren touched Myra's shoulder and whispered something Jack couldn't hear. Then she stepped back, her form flickering. "You'll guide her?" he asked, voice raw. "I can't," Saren said. "This part is hers alone." The door blew open, ripped clean off its hinges. The enemy stood there, unmoving, unrelenting. Saren stepped between it and the child. "Run," she said. But Mira didn't run. She flew. Not with speed. With purpose. The wings responded to her will, lifting her in an arc of pure motion. Jack saw her become light, cutting through darkness like a blade of dawn. She crashed into the being's chest, and the two of them spiraled into the sky, vanishing behind the clouds in a burst of starlight and shattering sound. Then silence. Jack ran outside, looking up, heart pounding. No sign. No ship. No Mira. Just smoke. He sank to his knees. Saren stood beside him, barely visible, her form breaking apart like wind-blown ash. She knelt, touched his face, and smiled, a full, beautiful smile. "She is safe," she whispered. "And more than you ever hoped." Jack blinked, and she was gone. He stayed there until the sky turned blue again, until birds sang, and the breeze returned, and the silence became something he could bear. A week later, he found the first feather, weightless, silver, humming with light, on the windowsill. And above the fields, sometimes, just before dawn, the air shimmered with wings.